Hey everybody, my name's Kyle and this is Track by Track, music reviews, news, and commentary. You know, this week, as I've been listening to the new deluxe edition of George Michael's Listen Without Prejudice Volume 1, it occurred to me that this album was actually the subject of my very first public music review. The album came out in September of 1990, and at that time I was a freshman in college. I was enrolled in speech class, and we were assigned to give a speech that shared the pros and cons of a product of our choice. So the product that I chose was the brand new George Michael album. Unfortunately, I don't have any of the notes from that speech anymore, so I don't remember what I said or what the specific pros and cons I presented were. I don't even remember if I got a good grade or not. I can certainly tell you, though, that I gave the album an enthusiastic endorsement. So here we are 27 years later. Has it really been 27 years for this album? Wow, it really doesn't feel like it. And yet, when I think about George Michael's sudden and unexpected death this past Christmas, I find it hard to believe that that was less than a year ago. In the months before he passed, I remember there had been some uncertainty about the deluxe edition of Listen Without Prejudice. It had originally been scheduled for release in November of 2016. Then it was bumped to March of 2017. But after Michael's death, it was completely removed from the release schedule. Finally, last month, it was announced that the set would be released in October. That was welcome news, of course, but after the previous delays, I crossed my fingers just the same. Thankfully, there were no more delays, and fans were treated to what will be the first posthumous release from George Michael. And for me, as George Michael albums go, this one is his best. There's a level of maturity in the songwriting here that we hadn't seen before. Faith was a massive, massive hit album that truly announced to the world that George Michael had so much more to offer than the bubblegum pop of Wake Me Up Before You Go-Go. Following up an album like Faith would be no small task for any artist. And to be honest, I'm not so sure that Michael's approach on Listen Without Prejudice was necessarily the wisest one from a business perspective. After dominating the charts with a series of mostly up-tempo singles, his second solo album was a very different affair. Consider the lead single, Praying for Time. More than any song George Michael had done before, this was music with a message. And that message was so important to him that he reduced the music video to nothing more than the lyrics to the song. I mean, think about it. We see lyric videos all the time today, usually as a sort of placeholder, while a more elaborate, proper music video is being developed. For Praying for Time, the lyric video was the official music video. The album title was Listen Without Prejudice, and right from the first single, we were being asked to do exactly that. Just listen. Listen to the music. Listen to the words. Don't get caught up in the visuals or the preposterous packaging that MTV requires for their biggest music video stars. Famously, Michael took things a step further on the video for Freedom 90, where supermodels were his stand-in to lip-sync the lyrics, all while we watched the iconic symbols of his Faith video set aflame. It's ironic, really, that the song Michael used to most directly skewer his MTV fabricated image was also the one track on the album that most closely resembled the music from the period that he was rebelling against. But if the album had been full of dance tracks like Freedom 90, I think the message that he was trying to convey would have been lost. Now, at the time of its release, this was to have been Volume 1, just as the title implies, of a 2-volume set. The plan had been for Listen Without Prejudice Volume 2 to come out about a year later and feature a more dance-oriented selection of songs. But as a result of Michael's conflict with his record company, that companion album never became a reality. Although a few of the songs intended for Volume 2 were released as singles or on compilation albums, the Listen Without Prejudice concept was abandoned after Volume 1 proved to be a disappointing seller in the United States. Never mind the fact that it actually outsold Faith in the UK. Now, I don't want to get too deep into the album itself here. Like I said, this album is nearly 30 years old now, and if you're wondering about picking up the special edition, you probably already have and love the original album. And again, for me, this would be George Michael's masterpiece. Faith was unquestionably his pinnacle in terms of chart success, but I think Listen Without Prejudice Volume 1 was his greatest artistic achievement. There's great songwriting throughout, which is something I don't think that Michael ever got enough credit for. Most other pop stars rely on a handful of writers and producers to help them craft their songs, but George Michael was the true architect of his own music. Just as he was on Faith, Michael was the sole songwriter for nearly every track on this album. The one notable exception was his beautiful cover of Stevie Wonder's They Won't Go When I Go, which was an inspired choice for inclusion. It works perfectly in the Listen Without Prejudice song cycle, and it benefits from the fact that it's certainly a lesser-known Stevie Wonder song. I'm almost positive that the first few times I listened to this album, I had no idea that it wasn't an original George Michael song. So it says a lot that Michael can insert a song by Stevie Wonder, one of the greatest all-time songwriters, into a batch of his own original songs, and it all feels like it's on the same level of songcraft. Incidentally, regardless of whether you pick up the deluxe edition of Listen Without Prejudice after watching this video, if there's one key thing that I'd like you to do, it's to go listen to the music of Stevie Wonder in the 70s. Fulfilling his first finale contains the original version of They Won't Go When I Go, and it's as great a place as any to start. George Michael was a huge, unabashed fan of Stevie Wonder, and if you want to better understand Michael's musical influences, you need to start with Stevie Wonder. You will not regret it. Anyway, as I said, you probably already know this album well, so I shouldn't have to tell you that it is highly recommended all on its own. So what I want to do here is review the special edition of the album, paying more attention to the bonus content, because chances are that's what you're more interested in. Special editions are tricky to review, though. I mean, how can you review a deluxe edition of a great album and not give it a favorable rating, regardless of the bonus content? Can an album that's a perfect 10 have a special edition that only rates a 6? Tricky, right? So what I'm going to do here is talk about the quality of the special edition based mainly on a few key questions. First and foremost, how is the quality and comprehensiveness of the extra music that's included? Second, how does the packaging and any physical materials or swag items contribute to the overall quality of the special edition? And finally, with the DVD being fairly common in special editions these days, does the video content add real value and insight into the artist or the album? So let's start with the music. This special edition includes 2 discs of bonus material beyond the album itself. The first bonus disc is probably going to be the one that's most satisfying for most listeners, and that's the MTV Unplugged performance. Technically speaking, this concert wasn't recorded around the time of Listen Without Prejudice, and only 2 of the 10 songs included were from that album. It was actually recorded in 1996, and it was actually released previously, so some longtime fans may already be familiar with this performance. Now, when I say that this will probably be the most satisfying disc, it's because it offers a very cohesive start-to-finish listening experience, which is inherently going to happen with just about any concert recording. Now, what I love about MTV Unplugged's format is the opportunity to hear songs that are typically heard in a more electric version recreated for an acoustic setting. That can be a big change for some artists, which is part of what makes this disc so rewarding. Take Freedom 90, for example. The original is clearly a very plugged-in dance track, so hearing it rearranged around acoustic guitars and percussion brings a totally new feel to the song. The same thing goes for songs like Fast Love or Star People, which both take on new character when unplugged. Meanwhile, Praying for Time is still a beautiful song in this setting, but just not as dramatically different from the original. There's just one Wham song in the set, and it's actually my personal favorite Wham song. It's interesting that Everything She Wants was the sole song from that era that Michael would choose, particularly considering what kind of reinvention we could have had if he'd done Wake Me Up Before You Go Go or I'm Your Man. Now for me, the highlight of this concert is Michael's cover of the Bonnie Raitt classic, I Can't Make You Love Me. Here, we get George Michael showing exactly why he should be remembered as one of pop music's best male vocalists. It's a gorgeous and heartfelt performance. Keep in mind, too, that while the song has been covered countless times over the past 2 decades, it had only been around for about 5 years when this concert was recorded, making George Michael's version one of the first covers of what had yet to become a classic song. Now, before the deluxe edition was released, there was a new Nile Rodgers remix of Fantasy that was shared to promote the album. I'd been hearing, though, that the discs for the deluxe edition had been printed before the Rodgers version of the song was completed, so it wasn't going to be included in that set. But when my copy arrived, I got excited because the song was included on the track list at the end of the MTV Unplugged disc. Unfortunately, I have to report that the song is not on the disc. There is a download code included in the box, so you can download all of the songs, including the Nile Rodgers version of Fantasy. But if you were hoping, as I was, that it would be included on one of the CDs, you're out of luck. Well, there is one more option actually, and I'll tell you more about that before the end of my review. Alright, let's dig into the other disc of bonus material. Now, as I said before, the Unplugged disc was the more satisfying of the two discs as a listening experience, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the second disc isn't good. The problem that we have with the disc is the same problem that we get with many special editions. In the interest of providing fans with a comprehensive collection of all of the relevant music from a particular period of time, we often end up with a somewhat random feeling track list. These discs are not necessarily designed to maximize the start to finish listening experience. They're designed to maximize the quantity of music in a single package. For example, on this disc we get two versions of the Back to Reality mix of Freedom 90 back to back on tracks 2 and 3. I don't think that's ideal as far as a listening experience is concerned. Thankfully, we get Fantasy on track 4 before track 5 gives us a third version of Freedom 90. And as I said before, there's still a second version of Fantasy coming up later on this disc. All that being said, as a fan, I think you still want all that stuff. I mean, artists assemble the song order on their albums very thoughtfully and intentionally, but when it comes to special edition discs where the priority is collecting all the odds and ends all in one place, it's an unfortunate consequence that cohesion and pacing is usually going to have to be sacrificed. Personally, I'm okay with that. As a fan, I'd rather know that I got absolutely everything, that nothing's missing, rather than have things like single edits or extended versions get left off. So, with the bonus tracks on Listen Without Prejudice, you're definitely getting a mishmash of tracks, some of which you'll love and some of which you'll be indifferent about. And although I may skip the single edits more often than not, I'm still glad I've got them. The final disc in this special edition is, of course, the DVD. This is certainly the most disappointing element of this set, mainly for what it does not include. The most glaring example of that is the omission of the video for the MTV Unplugged concert. The disc includes only the Freedom 90 Unplugged performance. That's a real shame, especially considering the fact that the entire Unplugged concert was released on video before, so we know the materials are available. I'm sure there were some contractual issues that prevented it from being included here, but still, for fans, this is going to be a big letdown. Another letdown is the lack of documentary content on the DVD. The highlight of the disc is an hour-long episode of the South Bank show featuring interviews with George Michael around the time of the release of Listen Without Prejudice. It's actually very interesting to watch when you consider the context of it and the fact that it was recorded before Michael's conflict with the record company and also years before his public sex scandal and subsequent coming out of the closet. Meanwhile, there's a brand new documentary playing on cable TV networks right now called Freedom that was actually being developed by George Michael before his death. Considering Michael's direct involvement with that project, it would have made perfect sense for it to be included with this special edition. Unfortunately, it's not. Finally, there's one more thing missing from the DVD, and that's the music itself. We do get the music video for Praying for Time, as well as the Freedom 90 music video and MTV performance, but that's it. It would have been nice to have included a high-res audio version of the album itself. Even better would have been a surround sound mix. As lush as this album already sounds, I can only imagine how immersive it could have been in surround sound. So, all in all, this DVD is pretty disappointing. It delivers the bare minimum of content to justify its inclusion in this set, but it fails to offer anything truly special. Fortunately, we do get some pretty impressive packaging here. The heavy cardboard slipcase is very elegant and nicely shows off the album art. And the hardcover book inside is really quite beautifully done. There's tons of great pictures accompanied by a long essay and behind-the-scenes details. It really does make this special edition literally feel special, so I think most fans will really appreciate that. If I have a complaint about the package, it's really just an issue of personal preference. The special edition for Faith was also a slipcase and hardcover book, but the size was smaller so that it fit into your CD shelf. I actually prefer that smaller size more than the bigger package. It's more convenient, I think, and to be fair, this isn't really all that big, but like I said, it's just me talking here. I'd prefer something more compact, but the Listen Without Prejudice special edition packaging really is beautiful as it is. So there you go. The deluxe edition of Listen Without Prejudice Volume 1 by George Michael is finally here. Are you planning to pick it up, or have you picked it up already? Let me know what you think about it in the comments section below. And for a closer look inside the package, be sure to check out the unboxing video here on my channel as well. If you'd like to see more videos like this, be sure to click the thumbs up icon below, or better yet, be sure to click subscribe, because true music fans always want new releases the day they come out. I'm Kyle, and this has been Track by Track, music reviews, news, and commentary. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.